I'm going to show you how I designed some scrapbook titles in Cricut Design Space. First off, I like to have a space to work in that reflects the size of my scrapbook. So I'm going to go to Shapes and insert a square. And typically I make 12 by 12 scrapbook pages. So I'm just going to change that square and make it a 12 by 12. Now, because I do not want this to cut, I'm just using this for a reference for spacing things out. I'm going to go over to Operation and change it to Guide. You'll see that this changes the square to a pink outline. It won't cut, it won't draw, it won't score, it won't do anything. You can see right now, it won't even let me click Make It because the machine is thinking there's nothing to make. All you have in here is a guide. This is great for when you're laying things out. You can even do this for the photographs that you plan to use. For example, if I know this layout is going to use a 4 by 6 picture, I can make a 4 by 6 rectangle and change that to guide. So now I have another guide to put here. And I could copy and paste that one and rotate it 90 degrees. So if you already have your pictures printed out and you know how you're going to lay things out, why not use the guides? Because then you can really space things and figure out how much space do you have. So I am going to make a title that just says Making Memories. You could then alter this and add sunshines if it's for a summer vacation, or snowflakes if it's for people playing in the snow. If it's for a specific holiday, you can add papers and elements for that. And I can show you how to do one variation, but I want you to really explore all kinds of ideas. So I'm going to start with text and I'm going to type in the word making. And now you can see I can just resize this so that it fills the space. I didn't have to think about how big am I making these letters. I want to find a really blocky, bold font. I'm going to filter my fonts. Sometimes when I'm looking for a font, I might find one I like. And then what I'll do is do a copy paste. And I just did Control C, Control V on my keyboard for that. And then I can kind of play around and look at different fonts to see if I like one better than another. But that allows me that if I change my mind and go, nope, that one's the best one, I have it to easily go back to. Like that one I can tell I don't like already for this layout. You are going to choose the font that you like the most. You don't have to use the exact same fonts I use. I am kind of liking this one. So I'm going to get rid of these. Now bring this one in here. And again, I can just resize it like this. Now I'm going to zoom in. Now I want the word memories to kind of be a cursive font. So I'm going to just type it again. And now let's go look for a font for that. This is the one I think I'm going to go with. Now, what I want to do is I want to add some kind of decoration to this. This is going to be for a vacation. So let's go to our images. And I'm going to go to my free images. The reason I like to use free images is because I want to really show people that you can just look at an element and use portions of it. And that allows you to use free things versus having to go and buy everything. For example, if you were going on a tropical vacation, you could just use the flowers from these. Here's another one that would be great to just use palm trees. Yep. So if you look down here, you can see I have previews for all of the different images I picked. That's because I'm not really sure what I want to use and how things are going to work. So I wanted to add a bunch of things. And then, like this umbrella, I decided I'm not going to use. So I'm just going to delete that here. But these other things I'm going to leave in there and see where this goes. So now I'm going to click Add to Canvas. It's going to bring in all of these images. Again, I don't know for sure which ones I'm going to use and which ones I'm not. But I'm going to slide them over here. So I have them here to use if I need to. I'm going to just make this one, let's make it burgundy. And the memories, I'm going to make yellow. I'm going to enlarge the word memories. And this is a really good example. You can see right now the way this lettering comes in, right between the M and the E, the M and the O, OR. So anywhere that these letters touch, it you can see that little black line. And that is showing you where it's actually going to cut. So if I were to click make it right now, this would cut the E separate from the S. But I want it to cut all one word. So I'm going to use combine and weld. You can see what that did is remove the cut lines between things. So use weld when you want to remove the cut lines between different elements. I am going to make a copy, and this time I'm going to right click and hit duplicate to make a copy of the word memories. I want to show you how you can do so many different things with this. I could take this word memories and make an offset. Let's just make a tiny little offset and say apply. Now, while I'm working on this design, I'm going to actually turn off my guideline just by clicking on the little eyeball icon. I'm going to make a duplicate of the word making too, because I'm going to want to make different options. That allows you to kind of decide what you like the most. So now if I take everything and say arrange and center it all horizontally, and that just perfectly centered everything in my design. Now let's take a look at the layers panel. So this one is the word memories. If I turn that off, I could just grab these two elements and say combine and subtract. You see how that cut that offset out of the word making? So now if I turn the memories part back on, it kind of looks like it's kind of cut out of it. I played around with a couple other ideas, none of them that I really loved. So now we're just going to go and see what I ended up with. For this one, what I liked was the little flag elements. So what I am going to do is just delete the other pieces that I don't need. I'm going to ungroup these so that I could make some of them longer and better, just so there's a little variation in here. I could even overlap them a little bit. If I select all of those and say align to the top, so now that I have those, oh, I want them, now I'm going to use group. So now I know they will stay locked exactly how I have them. I'm going to select all of these and I'm going to go align to the right. And if I use that and say arrange to the front, for me, this is where I start to look at what I've already designed. Not really a fan of this one for what I'm doing, so I'm gonna get rid of that one. Still kind of like that one, but I like the one with the banners better. So I'm gonna get rid of that one too. I do want to try something. So I'm gonna do a Control C, Control V of the whole thing so I could have a duplicate. Making a copy of things when I'm gonna play around with them is something I do a lot. And that's just because if I end up not liking it, I don't have to use undo all the way back to where I was. So with this one, I am going to select all of this and do an offset around the whole thing. And when I click apply, I want to change that to a gray. And now I'm going to do a second offset, I think. Make that one white. I want to make sure that the offsets are a solid shape so it doesn't have little openings in it. So I'm going to use contour to close out the openings. So you see how that filled that space in? I am going to go over to my layers panel and find that first offset that I made and turn that off for a second. You can turn a layer off just by clicking on that little eyeball icon. And actually, now that I look at it, I kind of like it better there. What if I just got rid of that one and did an offset just on this piece? Oh, now that's kind of fun. So you can see you can do all different variations. I was gonna show you another variation with the beach ball on it, but this video is getting kind of long and we have even talked about cutting this. So we're just gonna stick with this design here. I did end up changing up the colors that I was using in this design, and I'm gonna show you why in just a sec. Here's a little Cricut tip for you. I wanna make this, but I'm contemplating between going with a solid color cardstock and something with a pattern. I'm not quite sure how it's going to look on the pattern. Will the scale be too big or too small? So I have some cardstock that's a bright lime green color that I really am not a fan of. So I'm going to use it to have a template that I can use to place over my pattern cardstock to see if it's going to work. Let me show you what I mean. For this little tip, I'm really just looking at the word making and these little banners. So I'm just going to use my layers panel and the little eyeball to turn off the things that I don't want to cut. So now I click make it. I'm actually going to cut all of this out of the bright green that I was telling you about. So I can actually do this and say move this object to this mat. Yes, it's saying it's all going to cut black, but it's really going to cut whatever color you put on the mat. And I'm just using this for kind of a guide template. This is a great way to use uh, cardstock that maybe you're not in love with. Ever buy a paper pack and you're like, I love most of it, but then there's a few patterns or something in there that you're just not a fan of. Use them to kind of make a template guide for other projects. I like to kind of save those all together, and then it's my test paper. All right, so now we have this, and it's ready to cut. So now I can click continue, and it's going to connect to my machine. And I'm just going to cut this out of cardstock. So let's load the paper into our Cricut and hit the C button to get started cutting. And I am just cutting this on a cardstock setting. Again, it doesn't matter what color I'm cutting it on or if the cut is perfect because I can already see a spot that it tore a little bit. This cut is just going to be used kind of to visually help me look at the project or the paper that I want to design with. Because I don't want to cut my pretty paper and then go, oh, that didn't work and doesn't look nice. And speaking of pretty paper, I'm using the Witches and Wizards from Echo Park, and you can purchase this at 12 by 12 Cardstock Shop. Then what I'm doing is grabbing the four colors that represent the different houses in the Harry Potter series. And I'm holding this template that I made with the banners over it to see how that would look. Because I was kind of worried if the pattern was going to be too big and then just wouldn't look right in those little banners. But I'm happy to say that those plaids are going to work perfectly for what I envisioned. So now let's look at the word making. For a second, I thought about using that cream pattern from the same stack, but then I went back to my original black idea. Then I found some black iron-on vinyl, and I thought, ooh, that's really cool. I also did try the candle stick paper, but that was too busy. Ended up going back to the iron-on vinyl. I am not going to show cutting all of the pieces. I'm going to jump right to the assembly. But remember, when you are using an iron-on vinyl for your projects, make sure to mirror your image in Cricut Design Space. And this is because when you cut it, you're actually cutting from the backside. The clear carrier sheet is down on the cutting mat and you're cutting through the backside of the vinyl. After you have cut and weeded everything, I like to put my piece on top of a heat pad or a pressing pad, and this just protects my work surface. Then you could do this at a full-size heat press or put your Cricut press right on top, but I'm just using my handheld mini press. You really don't need to press all that long, just a few seconds, and I'm using a medium temperature. This is also a great way to use some pattern vinyl that you might have that you thought, what am I going to use that for? How am I going to make that work into a shirt design? Think of it like you would patterned cardstock, and you open up all kinds of possibilities. Once you're done pressing, just start to peel back that carrier sheet. If there's any portion of it that didn't stick to the cardstock, you can just put that parchment paper right over the top again and hit it with some more heat. Here is another tip for when you're using iron-on vinyl and cardstock together on one element. Do all of the pieces that need to be ironed on first before you start to glue anything together, because you do not want to be adding heat to any piece that already has glue on it. So you can see once I pull off the carrier sheet, look at how it sparkles. It just shimmers. Love the holographic off of that vinyl. Looks so great. I also did the word memories with an iron-on vinyl. The back part is that cream colored cardstock we had seen earlier with a little bit of a pattern on it. And then what I'm layering over the top of it is a Caesar Easy Weed in the color hazelnut. It looks like a perfect cup of coffee, if you ask me. Then once you have everything pressed, allow it to cool completely before you move on to the next step, which is gluing the cardstock pieces together. I first laid out my banners so that I knew that I had them positioned right. And then I took the lowest ones in that layering and applied adhesive to the back. And I just used my double-sided tape runner to do that and then stuck them in place. I am trying to line up the tops of these banner pieces, but don't stress out about that too much because you are going to layer the piece that says memories over the top, and that will hide any spots where it wasn't perfectly straight. I like to do things where your mistakes can be hidden if you make mistakes. So now I am going to take the piece that says memories and I am applying glue with a glue pen. I love, love, love my Zig two-way glue pen because it allows me to just squeeze a little bit and just a fine thin line of glue comes out. It's like writing with a pen, only it's glue instead of ink. Once I have the glue on there, I'm just going to flip that over and place it on top. That's it. Now you have a custom scrapbook title page for your book. I hope you enjoyed this project and that you learned something new about either design space or using things like iron on vinyl for your projects. Let's craft together again sometime soon. Thanks. Before you go, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. I love to hear from you.